Eight of Cups family. Welcome to Eight of Cups Tarot and welcome to your short horoscope for Scorpio season. Happy November, guys. It's definitely a very intense month to say the least. Scorpio season is always intense. It just is. It's about the changing. It's about the transformation. It's about the new growth, which often entails the shedding and the letting go. I like to always remind people that when we look at the whole of a season, it's very much deeply connected to the seasons in the Northern Hemisphere. So to get a good idea of what Scorpio is about, you want to take a look at what's happening in nature right now. What is going on is there's a certain amount of death taking over our environment. Things are not thriving. There's a lot of beauty in death, which is why if you are lucky enough to be in the Northern Hemisphere, in more of the North American regions where the leaves begin to turn these beautiful colors and everything looks vibrant and beautiful and alive, and then things start to shed, the leaves fall off and we see the bare bones of what's going on. And that's what Scorpio season is. It's the shedding so that we could see the bare bones of things. Scorpio also represents the underworld, the swamp, and oftentimes during Scorpio season, we tend to find out information that was otherwise hidden from us. Now, that could be due to a million different things, from external circumstances, other people lying to you, other people manipulating the situations, or it could just be how you manipulate or, disempower yourself in some way. Scorpio represents kind of the investigator, and it also represents, in financial terms, a reconciliation. So it's a great time for assessment. Oftentimes you look at nature, again, going back to this nature, and we tend to see the animals that are getting ready for the winter months, getting ready for their hibernation, making sure they have enough food, making sure that, and this is kind of where we're at mentally as well. We're in the preparation for winter. A lot of us are assessing our finances in certain ways as well. And you'll see this play out absolutely this month as far as the economy goes. There's going to be a lot more questions coming up, and we're going to want to get to the bottom of stuff. Why does this work that way? Why is this happening? What does this mean? You'll probably, I often see, because Scorpio does rule an investigative and journalism kind of thing, you're going to see a lot of news stories come out that could be somewhat shocking, and it could really change the way that you look at things. And I've been telling everybody, I don't care what side you're on of the political game, or if you're just completely sick of it, there's no way we're not affected. And it's probably a good idea to pay attention to what's happening with a healthy amount of detachment. And the Jupiter in Aquarius is going to help us with that. We can't be so attached to outcomes. We know that with Jupiter moving through Aquarius, and we're definitely going to know that when Jupiter starts to move through Pisces, that this is not a time for attachments. It is a time of release and letting go and understanding where we are in the bigger picture of things. The saving grace is we're moving into Sagittarius season, and that's going to be a beautiful, hopeful, regenerative time if we put in the hard work now. So end of October, most of November is going to be really getting to the bottom of our shadow work. This is going to fall in a different part of all of our charts. So for some of us, we're getting to the bottom of where we are financially. What's holding us back? What's stopping us from making these transformations? There's going to be an emphasis on our need for freedom. Obviously, as you could say, things are playing out in the collective as a need for freedom. A lot of people are afraid that their rights are being stripped from them, and that Venus and Sag, and then as Mercury starts to move through Sag and the sun moves through Sag, there's going to be a bigger emphasis on our freedom. And we have to figure out what's holding us back before we figure out how to become free of it, right? We've got to get to the bottom of these stories that we tell ourselves. And the great thing about Scorpio is that it's so deeply psychological. This isn't about like the little stuff. It's about really getting to the bottom of things psychologically. It's about allowing ourselves to be vulnerable. Now, I always say that there's always two very drastically different ways that this energy can express itself. And the lower realm of Scorpio is to be super protective, very vindictive, very secretive and private, and doesn't really like vulnerability. But these are also the qualities that it requires in order to have that evolution. And we're all clearly on this path of evolution. So if we can't be vulnerable in our relationships, vulnerable in ourselves, if we can't take those risks, then the alternative to that is that things will simply stay the same. And the fixed signs oftentimes like things to stay the same, even if they're not comfortable. However, this month, we're going to get an idea of where that comes from within us. What is holding us back? What's keeping us from making these changes? What are those old habits or those old storylines we told ourselves? What's the fear? Really, the Scorpio season is what is the fear? And if you're doing or operating out of a place of fear, you can kind of expect to be cracked wide open in this area. You know, if we want or need certain things or people to behave a certain way or to stay the same and not allow these things to change and grow, then that's where we hold ourselves back as well. And this is a moment of breakthrough for that, as we have a new moon in Scorpio making an opposition to Uranus in the beginning of the month. This happens on the 4th, and this is a really big energy for these huge breakthroughs. A lot of us are going to figure out why we do the things we do and that we don't want to do them anymore. Now, even in terms of like our diet and our food, and what are we ingesting energetically is a super big part of the storyline this month. Now, I know I just said that we have to pay attention because Scorpio season is going to demand our attention to get to the bottom of these stories. Who do we believe? What do we believe? How's it going to affect us? How do we want to change? Of course. But there's also this energy of allowing the transformation to occur. Remember, there's things we have to let go of. So we have to take a good look at ourselves psychologically, how we do things, how we hold on to things. And we also have to reassess, where would we be? Would we be better off if we let some of these things go? Some of us, this is like cleaning out the closets, cleaning out the basement kind of stuff. Some of us, this is reassessing our finances. You know, there's this emphasis on that freedom, which means that we're going to want to shed some stuff so we can be freer. Sometimes fate has a way of taking care of this for you. You know, oftentimes I see in these transits, you know, you want to travel, you want to go all these different places, but you have like an elder pet at home. And these transits can come in and kind of end that storyline, not because you wanted it to end, of course, but because the universe says it's time. It's time for this phase to be over and this adventure to begin. It's not always easy. And oftentimes Scorpio energy can be painful, but it's about confronting and feeling the pain and then moving through it. It's about allowing things to end so we can create the new story. A lot of us collectively are having these stories play out in our careers and in our finances, for sure. This is going to be an overwhelming theme, especially as Venus starts to move into Capricorn. This is not a comfort level for Venus at all. Venus in Capricorn means that we've got to kind of hold back a little bit. We've got to, again, like I explained with the animals, what are they doing? They're making sure they have enough food for the long winter. And we have to pull back and make sure that we have enough resources to get us through the harder times. Some of us need our resources to be a form of faith. Some of us, it's actually quite literally financially. Some of us, it's support from other people. There's needs there's wants, and there's something in between here. And it's those necessary tools that we need to recreate this next transition phase. Guys, 2022, Jupiter moving into Pisces. It's a 6-year. This is a very spiritual time for everybody on the planet. And oftentimes that means that because we have to renew our faith, there might be external circumstances that are making you really lean on it at this time. Some of us are facing losing our jobs or our careers. Some of us are facing having to take our children out of school. These are all very real considerations that are going on for people at this time. And as you could see, that all of those options can create an energetic field within us of fear. We got to look that fear right in the face and say, well, what's the worst case scenario and how do I prepare for it? What can I do to strengthen my resolve and my faith when things aren't really going my way? And what do these things mean? What do these roadblocks mean? How do we change these things? The universe wants you to change. Eclipse season is when these things become necessary. It's when the universe sweeps in and makes the changes anyways. So it's a good time to confront your fears. It's a great time to get to the bottom of the hows and whys and the whats. It's a good time to look at what you see for the future and what are the changes you can make right now in order to move toward that path. If anybody is suffering depression, and again, there's so much Saturnian energy for the past year or so, really the past several years, that we could feel this culmination and we could say to ourselves, man, I just don't feel good. I feel achy. I feel tired all the time. I don't feel optimistic. Of course, we're embodying this energy, and we're also embodying the energy of those that we're surrounded with by the news that we're watching, by, just all the craziness that's happening. Maybe it's a good time for some of us to address that, maybe by seeking therapy in some way, seeking some kind of healing dualities. It's a great time for that. It's a great time to dig into our dream interpretations. And it's also, like I said, a great time to look financially deeper into these things. And what do we need? Is there things that we could sell or get rid of in order to free up more financial money, to free up our time? Maybe there's sacrifices we can make so we don't have to work a full-time job, so that we can give more time to our creative projects, which are going to become so important in the next few months as that node moves to the very anaretic degrees of Gemini and Sag. And we have this full moon eclipse coming up in Taurus, and I just want to remind everybody that Taurus does rule the throat chakra, and it is in the second and third decans of this Taurus energy that we're dealing with between the eclipse and where Uranus is located. Now, the second decan of Taurus is Virgo. So again, mundane astrology, the things that are taking place now is quite literally changes for the way that we serve others. So you're looking at these changes with the police. You're looking at these mandates affecting, the medical service-oriented things, pilots, these are all people that, and even the military is ruled by Virgo. So you're looking at people, massive amounts of the collective that are going through these changes and having to confront these fears of whether, if I don't want to get a vaccine, is this worth losing my job or losing my career, or all these years of college and the investments that I put into them? These are not easy decisions. And that's where we can kind of trust these eclipses to come through and change our momentum towards our destiny. And so Venus in Sag, Mercury is going to be moving through Sag. Eventually the sun is going to catch up and move through Sag at the end of the month, closer to this transit. And Taurus also rules the throat chakra. And there's a need for expressing our self-worth here. What are our priorities? What are our values? We're going to begin to associate strongly with some very literal hopes and values that we have. What do we want that new life to look like? What do we want these new structures that we're creating to look like? And it has to be more authentic and of ourselves. Jupiter is going to demand this at the end of Aquarius. There's no more masking things. Quite literally, there's no more masking what we want and what we desire. It's just simply this energy is too big within us for it to be ignored. So it's a really beautiful time for us to assess what really matters to us. Take ownership of the things that we truly want and desire, and to let go of the rest. Now, this month is a lot about compromise. We're going to have to find the compromise. If you are in any kind of a Scorpio energy in which you can't accept a loss in some way, because Mars is going to move into that area in Scorpio, it's going to trigger our egos a lot. And again, I'm going back to those two different forms of that Scorpio energy. If we don't get our way, we could be very vindictive. We can become very manipulative. We're going to feel this need to control situations. This comes from a deep-seated, deep-rooted need to be in control so that we don't have to confront the unknown. The other side of Scorpio is if you let go, oftentimes the things we fear, we're never really worthy of it to begin with. So we have to allow these transformations to take place. We have to allow the dying off in order for the new growth to emerge later. That's ultimately the theme this month, guys. It's a heavy, intense month, but it's a great pause, and it's a great time to assess where we are, what we want, and how to move towards that in a better way. So in a lot of ways, you can make so much of a leap forward this month by confronting all of that inner stuff that blocks us. All right, guys, I do hope you have an amazing November. I hope you enjoy your November readings, and I'll be seeing you shortly. Take care. Bye. Hello, Leo. Welcome to 8 of Cups Tarot, and welcome to your cards for November. What a big month for you guys. 4th house, 10th house energy is always super intense. It brings up all these emotions within and then asks you, how are you going to express it outwardly into the world? How are you going to carry these experiences, these emotions, and how are you going to portray them or create from them? And so this month is profound within your journey for sure. Now, you are coming out this month as the Queen of Swords. And we always equate the Queen of Swords to that idea of discernment. And that's what the universe wants from you this month. It wants you to look at all the bits and pieces of your life and decide what stays, what goes, what helps you grow, and what doesn't. And this is big for Scorpio season because it means that we really got to dig deep. We really got to ask those questions, right? Like, is this person or this job or is this career really part of my bigger picture? Is it who I am? Is it what I want next? For a lot of us, the reality of the answer being no means we're burdened with the idea of recreating. It means we have to go back to scratch. And do we really want to do that? Or are we just fine where we are? Now, my attention first goes to, first of all, in the center of your reading, you have 50, card number 32, and card number 50. This is 555. Which is definitely the biggest omen of change I've ever seen. And I think Leo is a little bit like, you may have started something. Now you're not sure you want to go through with it, or maybe it seems overwhelming. But I look at the spiral card, number 50. And it's quite literally about the spiral. Now, It's just very odd. I chose these cards because they were very earthy cards. And I know Scorpio is a water sign, but it's a very earthy water sign. It's very swampy and, so, and then I'm doing these readings, and in the Taurus reading, I was kind of comparing like my experience with traveling to Arizona and how I loved the area and I wanted to like embody that in my home. And I found myself actually wanting to create that environment within an environment that's very much not friendly or like that at all. And so it's just funny that now I'm kind of getting into this reading and I see the spiral, and my first thought was my experience is hiking up and down some of those larger mountains. And the spiral goes both ways, right? So you start at the bottom of a mountain and you make your way up. And this is like the hardest part of the journey, right? It's like the most strenuous on our bodies as we're like moving uphill, like the uphill battle. And a lot of times you find yourself, like I know we would start hiking early in the morning, and a couple hours into the hike, halfway up the mountain, right? It gets really hot. It started out so cold, and all of a sudden it gets really hot, and you're like taking off the layers of clothing, and and it's just, but you know that you're going to get to the top and the view is going to be beautiful. But it also means you have to get back down. And there might be some Leos that are very close to the top of that mountain. And there's that feeling of, what do I do with it now? Was this pointless? Is it going to be a struggle going back down? Am I safe to go back down? One of the things that I think about when you go back down a mountain, right? Like you don't want to carry a lot of weight on you climbing a mountain. You definitely don't want to carry a lot of weight on you when you're climbing down the mountain, right? Because this is where we feel like we're less in control because gravity kind of takes over. And I think if there's any discomfort for Leo this month, it's in the knowing that maybe we're not so much in control. This is the point of the journey where it started to take on its own momentum. Now we have the Six of Swords, which has been coming out a lot in these readings, both the Six of Swords and the Four of Cups. And this is where I get the idea that we've started a journey somewhere in our lives, an emotional journey, a journey towards, a new job or a new career or a new way of living of some sort. Six of Swords oftentimes is our search for peace, calmer waters, right? If we've been in tumultuous relationships, or if we've been in tumultuous scenarios, or we've been like feeling insecure in our jobs, like our number one priority is to find that safe place. Our ultimate idea is to get to the top of the mountain. And I think that's what the Six of Swords and this Page of Pentacles really entails, is once you get to the top of the mountain, where do you go now? And the Page of Pentacles is one of my favorite energies, but in some ways, it does represent to me a new beginning, but also a fear of commitment. And that's what I pick up with that Page of Pentacles, along with the Four of Cups, is this fear of committing, like to fully embodying this dream. And sometimes we have to sit and top the mountain for a little while, right? Sometimes we got to wait for the winds to change. Sometimes we have to wait for that inspiration. Sometimes we just simply have to rest. And in those resting times, those opportunities come for us to revisit some stuff, for us to lay new ground and to plant new seeds. And it's an invitation to plant new seeds. But we have this Four of Cups right above this 8th house, endings and beginnings, again, breaking down to another 5. And the 4 tells me that you don't really like where you're at. It's not comfortable here. Like, we cannot stay at the top of the mountain. No matter how lucky we are, no matter if we find a plot of land where we can even like build a house and live there forever, it's not sustainable at the top of the mountain. It is inspiring. The journey leads us somewhere, but there's a whole nother journey on the way down. There are parts of ourselves that we have to leave behind at this point. There's old storylines, there's old relationships, there's simply lifestyles or, elements of our life that we just don't resonate with. This is a repeated message through every single reading I've done so far. Scorpio season gives you the insight of what is okay to let go of, what has simply expired. And we take those expired things and then we make room for the new adventure, right? We make room, like we clean out our fridge and then we go grocery shopping and we put the new groceries in there and then we feel nourished for a while. We have the things that we need. And the Four of Cups is acknowledging what doesn't serve you or nourish you anymore. But the thing about the Four of Cups, the contrast that invites, because it shows you what you are disenchanted with, what isn't working, what isn't part of your story, what don't you love about this journey, right? Like, did you wear a big heavy hoodie and you got to the top of the mountain and you're like, oh my God, I cannot wear this anymore. It's so hot. It's a completely different environment. What do? You take the hoodie off, right? Leo, we got to take the hoodie off. We got to disconnect from the elements that are no longer ours anymore. The thing is, we're going to think about it and we're going to go, yeah, but when we start going down the mountain or when we get back down to the bottom of the mountain, maybe we're going to still want that hoodie. Maybe you'll find a new hoodie. Maybe you'll find that the weather's so warm you don't require one. I don't know, but oftentimes there's a calling here that says, let it go, and you can't do it with fear. And the natural process and the letting go of carrying all of that weight and that burden is that now you have the strength to get back down without having to carry all that stuff. And the thing is, this thing over here that you were in, this situation or this scenario that made you feel comfort, made you feel like you were safe in some ways, you didn't really put a lot of effort into it anyways. Page of Pentacles. I'm just going to say it the way it is. You weren't fully invested in this thing anyways. And your fear card is that of the strength. And that's the universe requiring an investment from you. And the outcome is that Seven of Swords. Again, a natural progression between the 6 and the 7, but I don't like to see a 7 of Swords. It's not my favorite card by far. But here's what happens. See, your environment is that of the sun. Again, going back to this whole vision of climbing up and down a mountain, right? Going on this long hike. The sun brings on the intensity. It brings on the heat. And I think that that's what this is all about this month, is this intensity and this heat. The sun being in Scorpio, your 4th house. It's going to shed light on why you feel the way you do, why you didn't put effort here to begin with. What is a dissatisfaction? And how are you going to change it? Sometimes we look at the sun as a really beautiful environment, like everything that we want and need, but I don't see it that way. I see the sun bringing intensity and heat to the process. And in some ways, once you shed this old stuff, The new stuff is going to emerge rapidly. And again, you will be out of your comfort zone. Like, you know how when you go back down a mountain, it goes much faster? And I'm wondering if there isn't some fear deep within Leo that you're experiencing that's going to make you want to put a halt to this journey back down the spiral, the journey back down the mountain. And to that I say, stay at the top of the mountain as long as you need, okay? Because we have also this card, number 4 of postponement. Here we have this card, number 4. It's okay to stay in the element of dissatisfaction for a little while. It's also okay if things are getting postponed. It's okay. I want to assure everybody right now, because the 7 of Swords is oftentimes our way of self-sabotaging things. And because we're not happy where we are, we could try to take things into our own hands, of course. But my advice to you is to wait towards the end of the month and don't do much of anything. Just kind of pay attention to how the universe is playing this story out. The things that are postponed are meant to be. The only advice I can give you here is to not postpone the things that are meant to be out of fear, out of lack, out of, I'm not ready yet, I'm not ready yet. As the universe is ready. Movement toward adventure. As we move through Scorpio season, we're going to have an emphasis on your 4th house, and then it's going to evolve. Everything's going to move into Sagittarius. We're going to have this beautiful stellium in Sag in your 5th house of adventure. Okay? Whatever you're postponing or putting off because you feel safer, even though you don't love it, even though you're not fully invested in it, the universe is going to push you forward. Because you're on a path towards your happiness, the Sun card. Your self-sabotage is you postponing the inevitable, which is your happiness. Your happiness, the key to your happiness lies in that freedom. Movement toward adventure. Venus in Sag gave you a taste of what that adventure could look like. When the Sun moves into Sag, when Mercury moves into Sag, when Mars starts to move into, all of this is going to highlight the freedom, the faith in the universe. I think right now the postponement or the hesitancy that you have is kind of this lack of faith. Lack of faith that you could have what you want, or you could have what you desire, or that you could just simply be free of all of it. Now, the Freedom card really does come into play here because we have this Statue of Liberty. I am free to be who I really am. I have a right to my own happiness and sanctuary, and I am free to be authentic. You started this journey for a reason. You chose this path for a reason. The momentum started, and then you got scared. And you started to think about what a risk it was going to be, and you forgot, or you lost sight of the adventure. And Leo needs a reminder, a reconnection to their heart, right? Here you are, the Strength card. You need a reminder of how strong and tenacious you truly are. And the things that you can accomplish when you follow your heart. And there's a big difference between when a Leo follows his heart and his gut instinct and his desire, or when he takes on a more earthy tone and starts to think about it. Think about the fear, think about all the things that could go wrong. If you spend a lot of time thinking of those things, most likely you create them. And then the universe has like these bumps in the road and you're like, oh my God, I knew this path wasn't for me. I'm going to turn around and I'm going to go back up the mountain. Reminder, we can't live on the top of the mountain. So you will have to come down eventually. But this entire time you're thinking that the bottom of the mountain is this undesirable place when really and truly it is what you've been hoping for all along. Some of you are on a journey for a bigger life, bigger love story. You might have thought that you were there and you weren't. And so you begin to say to yourself, well, I don't need love at all. I'm not even going to go down that road. That's not even something that interests me. And you postpone the inevitable, which was love the whole time. Maybe not that particular person, maybe not at that particular time, but it's coming. It's in the vicinity. And you have to be brave enough to weather the storm to get there. You have to be brave enough to drop the burdens, to drop all of the old and expired stuff, and to ease yourself, to make the journey easier. There is freedom that you are headed towards, and it doesn't matter what direction you're choosing. And if there is postponement or delays or people not going with the flow, people not cooperating with the way that you thought they would, those too are blessings. And it's a reminder that the Queen of Swords can be a little bit of an ice queen, okay? Could be a little bit cold to other people's wants and needs, and that's okay at this time. It's okay to approach life with a certain amount of determination. Like nothing's going to hold me back. I think you're afraid of your own determination here. You're afraid of the momentum that started and where it's going to take you next. And there might be some real moments this month where you want to put the brakes on stuff and go, oh, no, I did not mean to start this journey. I did not mean to open this can of worms. This is a reminder that there's no going back. And that this is absolutely beautiful the way that it is. And if you need a break, if you need a pause, you too can take it. But the story isn't over and the train isn't stopping. You're on a path to freedom and authenticity and true happiness. It doesn't matter which direction you choose. It just matters that you're brave enough to choose. The universe is going to take you where you're meant to be anyways. It's going to be an amazing Scorpio season for you, Leo. I love it. I do hope that you guys have a beautiful November. And I will talk to you very soon. Take care.